favorite film is awful.
Hello, and welcome to Your Favourite Film is Awful, the show where we take your favourite films and defend them against negative reviews. As always, I'm Luke, and with me, in person, physically, digitally, his face is there now. It's Charlie. How you doing, Charlie?
I'm magic, mate. It's good to be back. It's good. It's weird. It's weird doing it through this.
We've been gone for so long. It's upsetting. It's very upsetting.
But I mean, but
hey, it's good to be
did the break, didn't we? And then the world sort of went up tits up after that, didn't it?
We did. It was hilarious. So my New Year's resolution was for change, and then in March we were like, "Hey, we'll take a month off," and I was like, "Hey, don't make any promises." And you were like, "Nah, let's give them like a time when we're going to be back." And I was like, "Okay." And then a pandemic happened, and I'm going to stick with how I just said pandemic and not pandemic. And God, it's been a while, and now we're on this. We're in different locations. It's magical.
Yeah, it's
so
weird.
God only knows how this will look and be.
Yeah, hopefully it's okay. I mean, we wanted to come back, and have some video for you guys. We wanted to come back and actually feel like, this is season 2. We're actually doing something different. And we've been trying, I promise you, we've been trying for a while to try and figure out how we're going to do this. And now we've sort of decided that, we can't do the guest format. So it will be just me and Luke for the time being. Apologise if we're a bit rusty. I mean, I have had a bit of experience, obviously, doing the Full Fat podcast. Which you can check out.
You've been helping him out with the Mando stuff, Mandalorian, the Star Wars. That's all finished now. Back in December, because I assume this will be coming out in January or February. So, did you enjoy the Mandalorian season 2? Real quick, that can be the what have we been doing recently of the
that's a good
podcast
idea,
that we always do. So enjoying Mando season 2?
Yeah, it was good. I thought it was solid. I feel like I need to go back and binge the whole thing, because that's what I did with the first season. Because at the moment, I feel like the first season is better for me as a consistent narrative sort of thing, like throughout. Don't get me wrong, some of the episodes in this were brilliant. Standouts for me were the first episode, the second to last episode, so the 7th episode with where Bill Burr's character Mayfield turns back up. I thought that was a fantastic episode. Just gets a bit Inglourious Bastards. And I like the finale. You can hear me talk about it more on the Full Fat podcast.
Exactly.
So check that out. I'll go into detail about all things Mandalorian without spoiling anything. No, we do spoil stuff. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything here for you guys. So go over there where we do spoil everything. So, but yeah, no, it does feel good to be back. Also, it's very strange, Luke, to see you through a digital.
It is
screen.
I know. I can't put my hand on your face as I normally do in our greeting.
On my thigh.
When you're like, "Hi, Luke, how you doing?" And I'm like, "No, it's too early."
Stop it. Yeah. I'm excited to do this because usually, guys, when we record the podcast, Luke usually gives me eyes, whether I'm going too far or not, or if I've gone on too much of a rant, or so now it's gonna be you guys.
I'm still gonna do. Yeah, it's gonna be
Exactly.
captured on film when I'm like, "Oh, he's not stopping. He hasn't finished talking. What am I gonna do?" But that said, normally I do the main edit of these. So now it's your turn. So now you get to be timekeeper.
Okay, I'll try.
I'm still timekeeper.
Yeah, you're still timekeeper. I'm
computer
terrible.
screen.
Good idea.
Right. So I thought for our first episode back, I thought we should do quite a big film of last year, of the old 2020. It was pretty much the only big film that came out last year, and that would be Tenet. And so I went onto Instagram and I was like, "Hey guys, what some films do you want to do?" And our good friend Harry Bagg, our good friend who did the Kingsman episode,
what legend,
he told us to do Tenet. So how do you feel about doing Tenet? And also, I apologize now to everyone because I'm going to go between Tenet and Tenet all the time.
I'm very happy about this because I was kind of sad that we didn't get to do it at the time when it came out. Because obviously, usually with the podcast, we're trying to do whatever's coming out at the time as well. And obviously, this was a big one of the year. Probably my most anticipated movie of the year, next to probably David Fincher's Mank. And yeah, I mean, should I say what I
Now
think of
we
it
get to
already, or
defend
do we go
it.
into or do we defend it now straight away?
Well, no, we do that at the end. But you could take over the whole the normal guest bit of what's the film about for those listening that didn't get to watch Tenet. So let's test your memory, Charlie. What is
how can you
Tenet
really
about?
explain it?
I guess boil it down to like the quintessential. Yeah,
essentially the main character called the protagonist, played by John David Washington, incredible, has essentially been given a mission to track down this Russian who has this device that could essentially destroy the world, because it inverts time as we know it. This is probably a terrible thing. I was not expecting this, even though I should have been, because this is the podcast. what was I expecting?
I did flip the script on you.
Yeah. But yeah, and it's basically just Nolan, all out Nolan, isn't it? Really, it's a combination of all of his movies into one, essentially. And
for good or for bad.
Yeah, well, we shall see, shouldn't we? Shall we?
We shall see. Yeah. With the reviews and then
how was that? As a description, as a premise, was that okay?
First review.
Do you reckon? It's okay as a premise. I feel like it was alright.
I'm not gonna say I'm like if someone had told me that was the premise, I don't know if I'd see the film.
Oh damn, that's not good. That's not good. I probably could have done this better, guys. All right, we're rusty, you know. We're just coming back, you know. It'll get better as it goes along. Trust me. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. It can hardly get worse.
Exactly. I mean, we're back.
Should we do our first review then? We're back.
Ready.
First review from Jonathan Wooder. It's a half-star review, 5 out of 5. Christopher Nolan making Tenet is the film equivalent of a dude revving his engine in his shitty Hyundai so girls will know his dick is big. And that's
great.
That's
do you know what, Luke? I've missed it already. Like this is exactly the kind of review
I thought I'd come back swinging and
smashed it again. Smashed it, Luke.
Smashed it. So, how do you feel about the review, Charlie?
I kind of
Tenet is the film equivalent of.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, I kind of get what the person's saying in terms of, like, you know, it's Nolan swinging his dick around, I guess, and being like, oh, look at how much money we can chuck into this, all these practical effects and technology that we're going to use in this movie, and but like, I don't feel like, I don't know. To me, I don't see it as him like swinging his dick. I see it more as just like him, like, you know, he gets given all this money to make these movies. You want to see that on the screen. And it does annoy me when you find out about these like blockbusters or whatever, these movies, they get put like, so much money put into them, and yet you don't really see it on the screen. I mean, like, you do, obviously, because there's obviously something they're paying for, but they've not shot it with the right angles, or, you know what I mean? They're not giving you the best of the, whereas, no, you know, with Nolan, you're going to get that 100%, and that is exactly what you get in this movie. In particular, with the, which still blows my mind. I mean, I see it in, like, I see it in the cinema when they were open and everything wasn't blowing up. Well, it was, but we went for a bit. We had a little bit of time to go to cinema, and I see it there.
Back in the day.
I see it there. I think I see it like 4 times, and every time I forgot the name of the plane. The scene with the plane. Like the heist with the plane, where they crash that giant bloody plane. Like the way that's shot. I mean, the fact they did it is crazy itself. But also, like, to me, that's like pure, like, that's films, that's cinema, that's what it is. Like, the spectacle of it. Like, one of my favorite movies of all time, Apocalypse Now, has the same sort of thing, where it's like everything is there, everything you're seeing is happening, and you believe it's happening. It's like, I think sometimes we've got a bit sort of too used to CGI and stuff, where we've kind of forgotten about the magic of. Do you know what I mean? Certain set pieces that you can do in camera. Do you know what I mean? I feel like things like Mission Impossible Fallout and things like that are trying to bring that back. And Nolan's always been obviously a big advocate doing everything in camera. I mean, so I for one was like a massive fan of it. I want to see, I like seeing an original blockbuster movie come out with this kind of budget, because you don't get them anymore, regardless of what you think of the movie. I feel like you have to appreciate the fact that this is a film that actually got made in today's current climate of blockbusters and franchises.
Well, yesterday's climate of blockbusters and franchises.
Yeah, it's true.
I think in 2021 we're just going to be grasping at everything and anything we get in the cinema, 100%. If cinemas are able to open.
Yeah, that is true.
Because that's also the big one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a real sad time.
I can kind of see what Jonathan's saying though. Like his analogy isn't awful, because a shitty Hyundai. So it's a car with which isn't it's a car of racing. It's the poor man's racing car, isn't it? It's not like, it's always a teenager's first car, and they've put a big old exhaust pipe on it so that everyone can hear them coming. And in some ways I can understand what he's saying from like that negative perspective, because it is, well, for starters, it's very noisy. It's a very noisy film. But secondly, it can be argued that some people didn't like the story, and so it's a lot of substance with no substance. That didn't make any logical sense in my brain. It was it was whipped cream. It was the whipped cream of movies, where you eat it and you're like, delicious. And you think that eating this much whipped cream would be good and it'd be filling, but there's actually like this much milk in it. So I can understand what he's saying.
I mean, I've missed your metaphors.
Have you forgotten how I can just make shit up? I'm just like, hey, here's a metaphor. Does it make sense? Barely.
Go
but
with
you
it,
get the gist.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say.
I refuse to go back.
I get what you're trying to say, but I do disagree, because I think that, for it to be, I think what the term you're kind of looking for is kind of like shit with sprinkles on top, sort of thing. Is that kind of what you're sort of saying, sort of thing? Which I think is completely fundamentally wrong when it comes to this movie, because I think the filmmaking involved is like, he's showing you like filming techniques that have always been there. It's nothing necessarily particularly inventive in terms of like the actual technology. Do you know what I mean? It's stuff that anyone could do with a camera, obviously not to the same extent that the size of it. But there's little things in it that I'm always amazed by. I think that I said to people before, I feel like Tenet is almost like a film school for film students in itself. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, at the end of the movie where the protagonist is in the back of the car, and the Asian lady, I forgot the character's name, she's at the front, and he shoots her, but you never see a gun. You never see a gun in any of the shots. Like, it's all told through the cuts, the sound effects, through the filmmaking. And a lot of the time, there's a few cases where he does that in the film, where it's like, he's just using the tools of filmmaking that have always been there. Yeah, you get these big set pieces where things are going backwards and forwards at the same time. But, that's all in camera, really. It's not, do you know what I mean? It's not nothing that can't be done. And I think that's the magic of it to me. Like, that's the awe of it, like, where I'm just like, this is like it's all there, it's all happening. There's obviously some touch-ups with CGI or whatever now and then. I know he said there's less than there was in Dunkirk and most rom-coms, which I think is interesting. And but yeah, no, I just found that to be, I think that's what I truly appreciate about it. And I think people, they didn't like the plot too much, I guess. I think it's because it's it's a very in-depth plot, and what I particularly like about it is that, the action and the character is all the plot and the character is all told through the action. There's not enough time to sit and have a chat about someone's backstory. It's everything they're doing is informing you the type of person they are. And I can get, if you're someone that's like really character driven movies, that this might not particularly be for you. I'm someone that loves character driven movies, and I still feel like there's enough character for me in this movie. I mean, it's not really about that, but but I particularly really enjoyed just the filmmaking involved. I was just engaged from start to finish. I see it more of like kind of how the theme of the movie is kind of like, not theme, but one of the quotes in the movie is like, don't think about it, just feel it. It's something like that, isn't it? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's kind of how I feel watching the movie.
It's like the scientist lazy.
Yeah, it's kind of like, this is an experience. Just let it take. Like Nolan is a great filmmaker. Like he will allow him your attention, allow him to let you go. Like, could you, I mean, you're in safe hands, sort of thing. That's how I kind of feel with Christopher Nolan from the opening, from the opening, which I think is a fantastic set piece. Like, what do you think?
It's a great cold open.
Yeah, like the action.
Well, actually, it's funny. Like all the things that you've kind of said and like gone around, because we're going to go into our second review now, which is from.
Do you want to give a little bit
another half star out of 5? Before
we go to the second review, do you want to give a little bit back as to what you thought as well, or is it just me? Do you think that should be defending? I
think primarily because you have the film knowledge, and I like at the end
you like being devil's advocate,
whether or not I actually. I like at the end, I like
the reveal.
Yeah, basically, I like being devil's advocate, and then I like the reveal at the end of me either liking the film or disliking the film for my reasons.
Okay, cool.
I like the mystery of that personally. I don't know if the viewers like it, but
we'll
guess
see
what?
They
it's
want.
Our show, and I will do what I want. Mike H. Half star out of 5. This movie was a great letdown. There's not enough world building and character development up front to create a compelling story. Nolan is a super talented director, but he wrote the story this time, and it shows. The lack of character development makes lots of things in the movie boring, or, at a minimum, very confusing. I have no idea how people are giving this a good rating. I love Nolan movies. He's a fantastic director, but this thing was a disaster. And that's the review.
I
think that kind of circles back into what you were just saying, which of character development, how fans aren't enjoying the fact that there isn't much to grab hold of in that sense of the wording. And it is there is a lot of actions and like little moments which are good if you're looking for them and you're kind of trained to look for that sort of thing, whilst blockbusters do kind of go, hey, like the way they handle the woman in that film, I can't remember the name because I'm terrible with names, but the way
Elizabeth Debicki's character, the blonde,
yes, blonde Elizabeth, yeah, her only character trait is the protection of her son. And like they really drive home, like at any opportunity they're like, the world's in danger and so is my son.
Yeah, that is funny.
Like, oh, it's like, come on, think the bigger picture. I understand because that's your character, but think of the bigger picture here. Whilst with the protagonists, it's lots of little things. It's like, oh, this person is in danger. Here is a gun. Oh, I'm stuck in this place. Let's do some exercise and keep my mind active. And it's little things that aren't explained to the audience, but because we're so used to it being explained to the audience, it just felt like it wasn't there. And I can understand why people didn't like that. And now I'll give it to you so you can actually say film-related things.
No, I think that's fair. I'd agree with that. I think, like I said, it's it's a movie that is a very technical plot. It's very elaborate, should I say? But I don't think it's ever disservice to the characters of the story. Like I think that we get enough to sort of chew on, particularly when it comes to Neil, played by Robert Pattinson. I think I'm quite intrigued by his character, and like there's obviously loads of theories online about who Neil is and stuff. Which is funny because I recently listened to an interview on the Happy Sad Confused podcast with Christopher Nolan, and someone asked him how comes your actors sometimes like dressed like you, like because how like Neil's kind of like Robert Pattinson's kind of dressed like a little bit like him, and like same with
Yeah,
Cobb
yeah.
in Inception. And he said that Nolan said that actually it's not intentional, but what happens sometimes is that the actors will find a part in the character that they feel like is a part of Nolan, if that makes sense, that's like connected to him, and that they will like intentionally go out of their way to like make the costume sort of look like him, sort of thing. And so I thought that was funny that he said that. But the next part that I thought was really funny was that he said that Tom Hardy believes that Bane is like based off of Nolan or something. Like he thinks that like a lot of character traits of Christopher Nolan are in Bane, which I thought was hilarious. Like, I was thinking,
do you think it's the high heels that he had to wear?
The way he can control a city, a group of people, I don't know. A way, you can get people. I have no idea what he means by that, but and nor does Nolan apparently. But I thought that was quite funny. Just a little segue. But yeah, no, I think I get that. If you want a really meaty character study, I mean, this is not necessarily for you. This is about push. This is a film that's trying to like push the sort of the form or like what hasn't been done before in terms of like sci-fi. Like I like that it's like a spy sort of sci-fi movie, but it feels so grounded still. Like even though you're having like all these elaborate things, there's not space travel, and do you know what I mean? There's not like it's still very grounded. It still feels something that's quite real, and I think that comes down to the fact that like Nolan, all of his movies have that kind of feel. Do you know what I mean? Even like The Dark Knight, for example, something that's larger than life. It has that kind of like like it captures like a reality. It makes you feel like this is a possibility, and I like the whole inversion stuff. I think we got to see some stuff that pretty much amazed me. Like I was saying, like this is something that I'm so glad I got to see in the cinema before everything closed, because I can't imagine it having the same effect on Blu-ray, which the Blu-ray is out now and I need to buy. For example, like the whole third act, I don't know about you, but my mouth was just like what? How is this?
I will. Yeah.
Yeah. Like how is that building blowing up and then not blowing up at the same time? Like how the technical, like I'm just sitting there thinking about how they shot it, and like the technicality of it is so intense. I'm like, how? Like the third time I was watching, I was like, how are they got all these extras to go that way and then go the other way? Like they have, like the fact that John David Washington learned to fight backwards for that scene, where he fights. Yeah.
What I was going to say is, in the scene where he fights himself, that is potentially my favorite and potentially for me the best scene in the film, because it's just so good and it's so tight and it's so well done. And yes, the plane crash is epic on like a big scale, and the battle at the end is cool in like the building bit where they unblow up the building and then reblow it up, and it's just this constant loop of it never really existing, and it's great. But that scene when he fights himself, like the choreography to then, because some people that listen wouldn't have watched or listened to the behind the scenes stuff, but they tried to replicate everything that they were doing in reverse in camera, so people were running backwards and he had to, as you just said, fight backwards. And it's just so cool, it's amazing. But I can't get into my true feelings on that third act, because that last 30 minutes, it does I'm not sure of that.
Really?
Oh,
interesting.
Shall we get into Baker Boy's 1 out of 10 review?
I mean,
who says
Baker Boy? I mean, we're in for a treat.
Baker Boy, and it's boy with an I as well.
Oh, fantastic!
So you know he's gangster.
Boy. Is that Baker Boy?
Boy, Baker Boy.
Right.
I don't write reviews very often, but this is one of the worst films I have ever seen. Every line of dialogue is plot exposition, as the writer desperately tries to explain something absurdly convoluted in order to mask that the world, story, or logic of the film do not make sense. It is a pretentious mess that bores you rigid from about 10 minutes in. I am astonished that people have enjoyed this movie experience. Inception was one of my favourite films ever.
I mean, to say you were bored 10 minutes in, I just refuse to believe. I mean, regardless of what you think of the rest of the movie, I mean, I think the opening, I mean, without knowing the context of, you know, what
in
happens
fairness, because, yeah, I don't know when you rewatched it, but I rewatched it fairly recently, and I kept looking at the time to see how far into the film we were.
Yeah.
And I think 10 minutes is the end of the cold opening, so probably
Yeah.
when he dies is
Yeah.
after, like, that's probably the 10 minute. And then it goes into, now it's time to talk about Tenet.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I
whole
refuse
other-
to believe that. I think the opening is like fantastic. I mean, Ludwig Göransson's score, I think, is like classic. Like particularly in that, I think it's called Night at Tallinn, I believe. That first track, which I absolutely rinsed when that movie came out. I had that song on repeat because I just thought it was reminding me of that opening scene, and like. You know, it's just it just feels like everything. I don't know, like when he's sliding and like the music's like dun dun dun, like just everything about it feels so like epic. Like I don't know, I can't really put into words that opening line. So it's like everything's there. You're seeing this whole opera house like blow up in front of you in camera, pretty much. To see all these people get sedated at the same time is like a visual that I didn't know I needed. Do you know what I mean? Like it was so, like there was something really satisfying about it. And then seeing these people run down. I mean,
But the thing
the
is,
funniest part.
you're agreeing with Baker Boy here. Baker Boy agrees with you. The opera bit was great because that's in the first 10 minutes.
Oh, so it's
immediately after he dies.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said he didn't like the first 10 minutes.
No, he likes the first 10 minutes. After it, he's just boring, bored rigid.
Oh, okay.
Hated it.
That's even crazy for me. When I mean, like you said, the best scene. I think one of the best scenes in the movie is that whole heist bit. You know, when they're in the art gallery thing, and you know they have to get out before the gas comes in, and then obviously he bumps into himself, and like that whole sequence, with the plane as well. Like I just think was phenomenal. The tension. Like when the key doesn't work, I know it's classic, you know, heist scene, but it was done in a way that, you know, it was a heist movie, a spy movie, and a sci-fi movie, and then it almost becomes like a war movie towards the end. Like, and I think my favorite thing with, you know, obviously not a war movie, but I mean, in terms of, it has a big battle essentially.
Yeah.
And I feel like my favorite kind of movies are the movies that like blend as many genres as they can without it being too tonally weird, and I feel like this movie does that seamlessly. And the score alone, I feel like I'm going to keep talking about the score because I'm a big Ludwig Göransson fan. Funny enough, he's actually my number 2 most listened to artist on Spotify this year, which I thought was quite funny.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. I think he's great, and I think it's interesting how they made the score, because obviously it was during COVID. They made the score through people recording individual sections of it. So like, say Ludwig was recording the guitar stuff, he recorded it, and then someone else would separately record the trumpet or whatever instrument it is, and then they would stitch it all together in post, and it's like the first time it's ever been done, pretty much, like for a movie. I'm pretty sure.
And we're over here worrying about our audio because we're doing it on a Zoom.
Exactly, and they're doing that for a big blockbuster. So, what are we doing? Exactly.
Who really knows? I've forgotten all of Baker Boy's points. Really, he didn't really.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to defend sometimes when people are just like,
yeah.
"Oh shit, hasn't got this, has got that." It's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
it is. I think his main thing was that the world story and logic of the film don't make sense. Which
I think I feel like they clearly do. I think it's quite spelled out to you. Like he says, he did complain and say,
yeah,
give too exposition. But I feel like he's actually not too bad with the exposition in this. I feel like a lot of it is told through like the action. Obviously you get a few scenes where like they're explained, but I think that's because you kind of needed those, because you know, like we said, it is quite a complicated plot. And also like
devil's advocate.
Yeah, go on, of course.
I'm gonna have to devil's advocate because there is quite a few scenes where it's just the protagonist asking questions and then another person just giving off info. The big one would be the scientist scene where she's just like, here is how this world works, and he's like, I don't get it. As the audience, just I don't get it, and she's just like, don't try to understand it, just feel it. just feel it. And then later on you have Neil, who also, like, we're like 45 minutes to the end and Neil is still over here being like, okay, so this is the grandfather paradox and this is this other paradox and this is another paradox that we're trying to explain in this film.
Yeah, I totally get that, but I do feel like that's also... I do also feel like, you know, you sort of said it there, where it's just don't think about it, feel it, wherever it is. I do think that is Nolan saying, like, you know, just like taking this experience. You don't necessarily need to know the ins and outs to enjoy this movie. That's something for the later viewings, in my opinion. I mean, this is a movie that demands you to watch it more than once, I feel like. So, because there's so much you'll miss, or I mean, even now there's still stuff I'm discovering from watching it. So yeah, I don't know. I do get it. It's a taste thing. It depends what you want. It depends, like, in terms of, like, obviously this the whole point of the podcast is for me to defend it. But like, I do also understand that, you know, like, that's not for everyone. You know, like, there's certain things that are not for everyone. I personally connected with, like, this movie in terms of, like, it's the pure filmmaking. I really like the story. I think the character's great. I think John David Washington shows us that he is the next big leading man, in my opinion. I think he's a fucking star. I really do. I think I'd love to see him in more stuff. We already know Pattinson's a star. He's gonna be Batman. Yeah. It was great to see that. I think that I don't know. It's hard to explain really how I feel about that, because it's just it's like I don't know. I think I flustered myself there with that one.
You have fully flustered.
I'm sorry, guys.
yourself.
I'm going to be rusty. You know, this is my first time back. I wasn't actually. Do you know what? Funny enough, there was a couple of bit of nerves actually. I was thinking, oh, it's been a while. See if I'm rusty. Obviously,
that's fair. Before we started, I felt that before you get on a roller coaster, you know, when you're like, ooh, this is going to be very exciting. This is going to be yes. And then you get on and then immediately you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. And that's happened again to me, because that's just how I deal with stress, I guess.
Yeah, that's good.
Just and then a minute and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, should we do what time are we at? We're at 34, I have. What time do you... Well, we'll get rid of that time. Yeah, let's see what happens. Should we do one more then?
Yeah.
Now, this one is actually from a fan of our show. It's not from the film. It's not a random film review I found on the internet. It's from a fan. When I asked our lovely people how they felt about in Tenet, and I left the options awful or awesome, and I went through and I asked a couple people who said awful what their review were, and this one was my favourite. It's a bit of a long one, but we'll see how it goes. So this is from Meg X. It was so confusing. For me anyway, laughing emoji. I feel like the storyline wasn't clear and there was a lot of loose ends. The word Tenet, to begin with, obviously it's spelt the same backwards and forwards, and they claim that it's some sort of special word that he'll need to use, but then he uses it in the next scene and then it's completely forgotten about. I don't know, it just didn't sit right with me. Also, towards the end, when they crossed over with their past/present self, I feel like a lot of it didn't make sense because they had to fight their past selves. Obviously, they didn't know it was themselves at the time, but their past selves at the time they were fighting would have known it was themselves, so why didn't they question it? Also...
Damn, can I just answer that first?
Yeah.
This is a lot to go through.
Confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think what that means is when protagonist is going backwards and he gets pushed into the art gallery. He now knows that he was the person he was fighting earlier in the film. And then they continue to do the exact same fight scene in reverse. I think that's what.
Yes, it's because they go back, don't they? And then he fights. Obviously, he does it from the other perspective. But I guess the whole point for that is that, you know, he's not supposed to see himself, is he? So he's not supposed to let himself know that that's him. It's probably something to do with the time.
Weird.
Yeah. There is definitely an explanation for that. I'm probably not the best guy to explain that, but I'm pretty
from what
sure.
I understand, from what I understand, it's quite difficult to understand what the fuck Nolan was, because earlier in the film he says, the scientist says that the whole bullet drop thing, that the only reason the bullet would go back up to his hand is if he's already dropped it.
Okay.
So
he has to do it. Yes, that makes sense. That is the explanation, I think, now you said it.
And it's a weird one because there's still control, like there's still free will, but there also isn't, because he has to do this fight because he's already done this fight, and what happened.
Yes.
As Neil repeatedly says.
Yes.
And so that brings up a whole other layer of,
yeah.
Okay, so maybe that scientist was just bullshitting, because that doesn't sound like free will to me.
Yeah.
That sounds like set actions. Do you want to take a crack at what good old Megex has said?
I think as well, again, I'm just going to sound like a broken record. I feel like this is kind of my point with the last review as well, was that, like, you know, I feel like I see this movie as like, it's, you know, you experience it all through the action. I feel like anything outside of that, you don't need to stress too much about, but the story is there, just watching it. Do you know what I mean? Like, watching it all unfold. I mean, I think the answers to these little intricate questions, like to do with the time travel or whatever, it's always difficult, isn't it? Time inversion. Are definitely there. But I think, I don't know, for me personally, I just feel like getting caught up in that. Maybe this is a bit of a wet sort of defense. I don't know. But like, I feel like it, you know, the whole point is kind of like experiencing these set pieces, like the high scene, like the action. Like, there's not much dialogue, but when the dialogue's there, I think the dialogue's fantastic. I think actually some of his funniest lines, because Nolan isn't particularly usually one for comedy in his movies, but I think some great lines. I really like the connection between Neil and the protagonist, particularly when they first meet and he says, "Oh, you want a Diet Coke?" And he's like, "What?" Like, because he knows they've had this friendship for years, sort of thing. And I really like that whole aspect at the end where it kind of you know, nodded to Casablanca, where it's like, this is the start of a beautiful friendship, and it's cool because obviously he's gonna experience that friendship, whereas Neil's already experienced it. And I just, things like that I really like. So that was a great character moments for me, like that. I feel like people sort of looked over or wanted more from, maybe. But I feel like, I just feel like it's more of a film, like I said, you're supposed to feel it, like experience it, watch it through the action, watch the characters are revealing their character through their actions, through the story, through these big set pieces, and like jaw dropping. Like, not even just that, I think we haven't spoke about the highway bit with the fire truck, where, you know, he's trying to like, that whole bit is
the music in that bit, like,
really
heart
good.
pounding. I remember,
So
like,
good.
every time I watched that, my chest was like,
yeah.
but that was just because of the audio, and I was like, oh, this is exciting.
Yeah, the only thing I do find weird in the movie, not weird, but like, I think it's just funny. I mean, shout out to Harry Bragg, who actually did recommend this. He's also a Travis Scott fan, and it was funny to hear Travis Scott's voice during like certain big moments, like him going like this auto tune, like like going whenever like big moment that come out. I just find it funny that like, Travis Scott and Chris Nolan like buddies. Like, I just think it's funny.
What a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no. Yeah, like those set pieces, I think like I'm watching these set pieces and I'm like, I don't even need to I don't need to know about too much about these characters. Like I'm understanding the plot. I understand he has to get from A to B. He needs to do this thing. So yeah, I mean, I can get it is confusing. I mean, I went to see it with I took my dad to see it, and he wasn't too keen before going to see it because he's not a massive like sci-fi guy. And then we went to see it, and he was like, yeah, it was a bit confusing, but like I just loved it as a film experience in the cinema, and I'm glad that it exists because of its originality. And yeah, I mean, when's the last time you see a movie of this scale that was an original story? Yeah, I feel like I'm giving some wet responses here, but to these. But I feel like
I think they're fine responses.
Yeah, I feel like it's just my personal opinion for it. So, yeah, but yeah, no, I'd like to hear more of. I'll make. I would review.
Just be wary. I'd say just be a little wary. I mean, it's too late now, but you're kind of hitting all the points that I feel that you're gonna want to hit when you give your review at the end.
Oh, right, yeah, that is true. That is true. But I'll try and save it.
Yeah,
I'll try and save some stuff.
You've got some bits left.
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready for more confusion? Also, at the end, Robert Pattinson says he already met Washington's character, so now he knows he's going to meet Robert Pattinson, who will... Oh, how will that now affect his life, knowing that he knows him? Will he still have to continue living his life until he meets him to then say back to him he's already
met him.
Known him? Yeah. I don't know. I'm just so confused, laughing emoji, and I don't know if it's just me being thick or not understanding the film, or if it is actually whack. Laughing emoji.
I see.
The end. And that's fair. I think that kind of loops back into the whole the fight scene where it's like at some point, like unlike the fight scene where Washington didn't know he was fighting himself until he starts fighting himself. He now knows that he's going to meet Neil, but even as Neil walks away, he's like, "Not when you think you met me."
But I feel like
I join you, but not when you think I'm going to join you.
Yeah, but I feel like that's kind of like, but I feel like that's kind of like the unsung rule in the movie or in time travel stuff in general, is that like, you know, I mean, he's not going to go and explain to him because it might change his choices going forward, so it will affect everything in general. So I feel like that's kind of the reason that, you know. But
then I can understand it from to be kind of depressing about it. If an angel or a devil, if you believe in such things, or just a personification of death were to come to you and go, "Hey, you're going to die, but I'm not going to tell you when," and then walks away. And like, we all know with our existential dread that we're all going to die.
Yeah, so he's not going to tell him that.
But to have someone... Yeah, but for someone to come up to you, look you dead in the eyes and be like, "You're going to die," and then walk away to then go back in time and save Washington from dying from a bullet in the head, because that was a whole fucking thing as well. I can understand why it'd be a little confusing, because if death comes up to me and goes, "Hey, you're going to die," from that point on, I'm probably going to be a little bit more careful than I would have before death came up to me and been like, "You're going to die."
Yeah, exactly.
It's that whole thing. It's the Cinderella effect, where it's like, hey, she's going to prick her hand on a needle and go to sleep for 100 years. So they just got rid of all of the sewing needles.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's
so.
Yeah. I think no, I agree. I'd agree with that. I feel like I feel like as well, I was just thinking so go on, what you saying?
I was just going to say it's a bit hard to defend against confusion.
Yeah, of course, because it's like it's hard.
Confused.
Yeah, exactly. I was quickly thinking. I was thinking about Elizabeth. We haven't really spoken much about Elizabeth Debicki's character, and Kenneth Branagh, the villain, who I think's really good in this movie.
Yes, the villain. We haven't spoken at all in this film.
Yeah, and I really like all of that stuff with them two. I think it's a really interesting relationship, and I think particularly the payoff of her being like, that woman on the boat who jumps off, like she feels so free. Like sometimes I wish I could be her. And then how obviously finding out later that actually is her. Is like such a nice bit of like character.
That was nice.
Stuff.
I really liked that. Nice.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And like to have her.
I really liked that bit.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool, and like to see, you know, her change and growth through that is enough. Is all you need to know, sort of thing. And also just the way she just kills him, I think is really brutal. Like she just slides him, the way he like flops off. Like I don't know, like
oh god, yeah.
Just whacks his head on the side. Like it's just
It gave me very
exactly what I want to see happen to him.
Les Miserables vibes. Have you seen the film of Les Miserables?
I actually haven't.
With Hugh Jackman and
Sacha Baron Cohen's in it, isn't he?
Okay, so in that film, there's a police officer.
No, yeah,
he is.
Yeah, yeah.
But the antagonist of the film, do you mind spoil this? This isn't really a spoiler. It's been out for ages. This is your own fault for not watching this depressing musical. He commits suicide by falling into a lake. He just like gives up. He's like, fuck everything. He just falls face first into a lake. And you'd think, okay, it'll be a nice little splash, and then we'll never see this character. But it's not. It's not a nice little splash because he hits concrete.
Oh,
there's like this whirlpool of like this ring of, and so there's like this lovely-ish number, and then he falls forward, and you just hear of his body just snapping in several places, and you're like, I didn't need that bit. That bit was a bit much. What the actual fuck? I feel that's a bit like when the good old Russian guy died, because it's like pow pow, you're dead. Push and now neck break and turn into a dummy when you hit the water.
Well, I feel like the difference with that is he's such a dick. You kind of want to see that, you know, like in the movie, like he's such a dick to her and everyone around him that you kind of, and I quite like that. I actually liked his motivation. I like it felt different in terms of, you know, I like that he was dying and he was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna take the world. If no one can have you, if I can't have you, no one can.
Yeah,
so I like that.
I think in the moment having that motivation was acceptable until somebody, I think it was have you watched the Film Pitches, the Screen Rant YouTube show Film Pitch? It's like Ryan.
Oh no, but I have heard of them. Yeah. I think I've seen a few.
Yes, so he recently did one on Tenet, and he explained that motivation as, so he's like a kid who's losing at Monopoly, and so flips the table.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that is this adult man's motivation is he's going to die. Everyone's going to die.
Yeah. But I do feel that's kind of like, but I do feel like there's people out there that like that. Do you know what I mean? And I think particularly, he's a very selfish man, you can tell anyway. So it runs in tune, I feel like, with who he is. Do you know what I mean? To have that decision. And like he's obsessed with her, you can tell that. And I think, I don't know, I just thought it was, I like when they give like big bad villains like this sensitive side to them is like the fact that his love for this woman, even though he doesn't treat her right, like is ultimately his downfall, and also it's he can't deal with that emotion of, do you know what I mean? He can't deal with like someone saying no, or someone not loving him or not giving him what he wants, that he's like, well, no one can have it. Do you know what I mean? Like he struggles with that, like kind of selfish child kind of way, like he explains. And I think that's I don't necessarily think that's a bad analogy. Do you know what I mean? I think that's like his flaws as a human, isn't it? That he hasn't grown and developed in those areas. Do you know what I mean? In maturity, because he's been given everything he's wanted through this material that he finds, doesn't he? What's the material in you know what I mean, if you've seen the movie.
He gets gold and then bits of the device for the algorithm.
Yes, for the algorithm.
I think those are the two main things he gets.
Yeah.
Right. So that was all of the reviews that I've accumulated. So the last review is my review, because I'm not gonna lie, it's time to reveal myself. This film is definitely going to be in like the top. Man, this sunlight is killing
Yeah,
me.
yeah, you're looking
This film
pasty.
is yeah. So we haven't done our top 10 of the year. We haven't done the Yafir Awards yet, but hopefully, depending on how this goes, that can be in the cards in like February or something.
Hopefully. Yeah, I need to watch a lot of movies.
This film
I'm so behind.
is definitely within... You need to get on it fast.
Yeah.
This film is definitely in the top 5 of 2020, without a doubt. Whether it's the top one, I don't know yet. But I feel it is only in the top 10, the top 5, because nothing else came out. This film is such a spectacle piece. It is... I can understand wholeheartedly why people didn't like it. I watched it 3 times, and I just have one of those brains that the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, cool. And on the second time, I just picked up extra bits. Like, at the beginning of the film, Neil saves the protagonist with the reverse bullet. At the beginning, did you notice that? I assume you did. You watched it 3 times. I'd be worried if you didn't.
I think it might have been 4.
But some people out there probably didn't. But I am on that same bit where there is... It's like he overcomplicated the explanation to scientifically explain it so that it made sense when he didn't need to, because people would just accept. Like, the audience is so forgiving and will just accept all this bullshit until you start explaining it, because the moment you start explaining it, the audience is going to start picking holes in your explanation, and that's where the flaws start coming in. So I feel like he overcomplicated it and made it into a spectacle film where you don't... You walk away and go, this film was brilliant visually, but story-wise, it was whatever. And that's how I feel. Okay. So now it's your turn to do your review and counter-argument, I guess. Oh, God, the sun.
Yeah, I guess so. I obviously I disagree. I think it's... Obviously, I think it's a great piece of filmmaking, but I also think I find it has great character moments. I think it also has a great story. I get what you're trying to say with the whole explanation thing. I think I would kind of agree, but also disagree in terms of the sense that I actually think that... I mean, you got to think like for the fact that Inception, Nolan doesn't really treat his audience like idiots. Like, Inception is a big budget movie that there's a lot going on, and I think this is the same. And I think, but I also think this is more that it's more confusing than Inception was. And I think maybe Nolan felt that he needed to have those explanations for the rest of the audience, sort of thing. And I do agree with that, just because of the concept itself is like, I mean, obviously he's telling it visually, but there's only so much he can do. Whereas like Inception, you can actually see each dream, so generally you differentiate between the three. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this is as good as Inception.
No, actually, going into Inception, if I can quickly interrupt you,
yeah, of course,
because I just remembered a thing that somebody else has said, and now I'm going to steal that idea. In Inception, Ellen Page's reactions to new information
is the audience
is like reflective of as the audience, but in Tenet, he does the bullet catch, and like it's this mind blowing thing, and Washington's direction of how he should respond is, whoa.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of how we would be. Whoa.
No.
It does feel like that when it happens.
We would shit ourselves and go, what is the world? And fall into existential dread.
Yeah, but he's a man that he's seen a lot. He was dead a minute ago. So,
this
for all
is
you
true.
know.
Death makes you a lot more accepting.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I was saying...
Continue with your review.
Yeah, no, I just feel like... Yeah, I don't think this is Nolan's best film, but I think it's a great fucking Nolan movie, and I think it's a film that I'll be watching quite a lot. I think I've learned quite a lot from this movie as a filmmaker as well, from a filmmaking perspective, and like the technicality and also the simplicity in some of what he's doing in that film. I think the protagonist is great. I think the dialogue. I think some of the best Nolan dialogue in certain scenes. I think, like for example, that whole bit when in Mumbai when they go into the bungee jump up the into the building, and then you have that whole bit with John David Washington when he has the guy at gunpoint. And he's like, I'm the guy that people talk to. All of that dialogue.
No.
John David Washington was smooth as ice.
The best bit there.
Smooth as ice? Cool as ice.
Smooth as ice. Smooth as ice.
Cool.
No, you commit. You commit to your mistake.
I commit to it.
Smooth as ice now.
Smooth as ice.
The best bit of dialogue in that scene was Robert Pattinson with his gun just being like, go on, eat up.
Yeah, that bit's great. That bit's great, yeah. That's what I mean. There's a lot of comedy moments.
Super high drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
I just think it's great around. I think the fantastic performances. I think, obviously, the effects are incredible and stuff. I think Elizabeth Debicki is amazing. I think John David Washington, Pattinson are incredible. I personally think the plot's really cool. I do think it can be a bit exposition-y. It doesn't tell the exposition as well as something Inception does at times, but I think that's maybe like a trap within the concept itself. But like, there's not much I can really say in terms of the flaws for it. I mean, personally, this movie like really captured my imagination. It really reminded me what I love about films. It reminded me why I love the cinema. It reminded me why I want to make movies myself. Like everything about it. Like if we're gonna take it from a personal route, like it's my favorite film of the year so far. It's my favorite film of the year so far for them reasons, like people could give other reasons what their favorite movie was, but like for me this film just sparked it all back in me, just reminded me, especially where I think I'm probably feel a bit more emotionally connected to it because of the time that we're in right now and how dire things are looking within like the film world, particularly with that HBO Max streaming thing and stuff. Like we don't know the future of cinema is it's slightly concerning at the moment. And I think the fact that I got to go to the cinema this year to see that, it just makes leaving this year feel a bit better. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like, I'm glad I got to see that movie in the cinema. I don't think there's any other way you could see it. I mean, I see it in the IMAX in Waterloo, the big boy. So it was like where it should be watched. And yeah, no, I hope I've defended it well, because I love this movie quite a bit. I think I have my problems with it, but ultimately I think it's like I need to really think about where it ranks in my sort of Nolan movies. But I think it's fantastic. I mean, all I know is I don't think it's as good as Dunkirk or Inception, and The Dark Knight. I have to really sit and think about it. But so far, like I just
it'll be a whole ordeal.
Yeah, it was just it's the only film, the big film really I feel like of the year, the big blockbuster of the year that I wanted to do the podcast about so bad. And it's just been good to talk about it. I mean, it's been a while since I haven't actually watched it since I see it in the cinema. But I watched it enough times to I feel like to come on here. Maybe I should have watched it another time before. But I mean, I feel like I've said enough. I feel like you understand why I like this movie. And it just completely captured my imagination. It did what I escaped for a couple of hours. It did exactly what I wanted it to do. And yeah, I'm John David Washington, man. I think he's the. I said it after Black Klansman. I said to my mates like, I mean, I know he's Denzel's son or whatever, but like I think he's completely his own, and I think he's fantastic, and I just want to see him leading it and everything. I think he's like the future star. I think he's just got it. When some people just have that it factor. And I'm very excited to see what he does next.
Yeah, you have reminded me though. Very quickly, we should touch on the third act. The last 30 minutes of that big war film, the war section of the film. I fucking hated that. That shit was shit.
You didn't like it?
Who are they shooting at?
What do you mean the shit at?
They touched down at the beginning. No, okay. So they touch down with the helicopters, and you see a group of, let's say, 5-10 people. Yeah. And then they go past those, and then you never actually see another enemy apart from when Neil discovers the inversion machine and like one guy comes out and does his whole shtick. But
because you see them plant the bomb. You see them
enemies.
You see him plant the bomb.
Yeah, no, you see the
see them get shot.
You see that one
at the
guy.
Start. You see that. You see if him get shot when they're starting. You see him getting shot throughout. There's quite a few that's getting shot. Maybe you're just saying you don't see.
You see people shooting. You see our guy, like the blue team, red team, shooting at stuff, but you never actually see any enemies apart from at the very beginning of that fight, and then that henchman that like sets the tripwire mine, and then goes into the place to destroy the algorithm. Like, you don't see any enemies at all, and it fucking kills me.
Really interesting. I mean, it's not really about seeing those enemies in that scene. It's more about them getting to that from there to there, whilst all this mental stuff's happening anyway, because obviously it's happening in first and forward at the same time. I feel like I did see some enemies get shot towards when they first come out, and like they all running and they shoot like a few guys
when they first come out. They do, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But that scene isn't like that scene's like 10 minutes.
Yeah, but then I feel like the rest of but I feel like the rest of the sort of tension or the action out of that scene comes from the dangers of, oh wait, things are going in reverse, like that woman getting trapped in the building, which I thought was like cool and like dark, like getting trapped within, and them having to time up the rocket launcher blasts in reverse, and do you know what I mean? So it hits the building as it's going down, like stuff like that. So it didn't necessarily need that for me.
For me, it was like one of those balancing things where like the speculative nature of it was very cool and it was very engaging.
So you wanted to see more tension on the foot.
Well, yeah, it was more like I want to see who they're shooting at.
Yeah,
I want to see some bad. I want that like that good old Hollywood shot of some bad guy getting shot and like get kicked off his feet because of the bullets, and it's like it's so unnecessary, but I wanted it and it wasn't there, and it was terrible. Also,
you got to remember about the rating of this movie. You got to think about the rating of this movie.
Oh yeah, it's like a 12.
Yeah, which
is it 12?
Which is another reason why I love it as well, because I think it's just like, you know, I love that it's, you know, anyone can go to see it pretty much. You know, it's accessible to all, whether the plot is, you know, accessible to everyone is up to them, I guess. But I like that he makes these big action movies, blockbusters, and that for everyone. And they're still
for all ages.
Yeah, for all ages, and you don't feel like you're getting cheated out from an adult. But you're not getting something dark or whatever you want, or something that's more for the younger audience. I feel like you get. I mean, I think he's a master at doing that, as we've seen him do with The Dark Knight, for example. Yeah, but yeah, fair enough, Luke. But I'm surprised you didn't like it that much.
If I must.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, if I may, I just want to bring about because. From the offset, the first trailer, I compared the entire film, having not seen it, to one episode of a brilliant British TV show called Red Dwarf. Yep. Now, in Red Dwarf, season 3, episode 1, called Backwards, our forward protagonists go into a planet of, let's say, an inverted planet. So everything is going backwards on this planet, apart from our main characters. And in that, they have a fight scene, they uneat food, they have arguments where the other people are speaking in reverse. And these are some things that... And so, like, two of those things you see in Tenet, and I was right. And, like, yes, Tenet did it a bit better because they had a bit of a slightly bigger budget than a TV show. However, upon rewatch, I noticed something. How come when our protagonist and Neil and Elizabeth are going backwards in time for a week, we don't see any of them eat, drink, or use the toilet?
Oh, that's such a... I hate that shit. Luke, don't do it to me.
Because...
You got a reason.
In that Red Dwarf episode, the conclusion is one of our main characters going for a little tinkle in the bush, but he's on reverse planet, so he
of course, they don't explain that, do they? If you have a reverse shit.
Hello.
That's great.
Like the entire episode, they're like uneating food, and then he goes off for a quick piss, and it's like, no.
I'm still surprised.
In.
I'm still surprised people didn't notice it like we did. Like, I'm surprised people didn't like. It wasn't plastered everywhere about this red dwarf scene when it come out. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like they're.
I mean, yeah.
I guess it's.
I feel like it's been like this idea in different varieties has been around in all types of media. Yeah. But the moment I saw that, I was like, hey, it's the bar scene from that Red Dwarf episode. That's so great.
So good. Amazing.
So good. And after that tangent, unless do you have anything else to say? I feel like I feel like this is naturally wrapping up now.
I think it's time to do some plugging, maybe. What do you reckon?
Exactly. How much do you remember before I start pulling up links?
Right. Well, first of all, you should guys subscribe, because this will be on YouTube.
Yes.
Subscribe and click the bell and all that jazz.
You can see our lovely faces on YouTube.
Exactly.
If you've watched this as an audio only on podcast.
Exactly. And tell your friends, share it, do all that jazz if you want to, unless it was shit, then don't bother. But I'm pretty sure it was
even if you don't want
even
to,
if it's shit, just share it.
Still,
exactly.
Just share it. Add a quick comment, because I know that has something to do with the algorithm as well. So comment, press like, subscribe, press a bell. Apparently there's a bell, notification bell.
Yeah, there is. Yep, it sends you notifications. Yep. So do all those things if you want to hear more of me and Luke, and maybe see more of our faces as well. But you can also follow us on Twitter at @FaveFilmWasAwful. You can follow us on Instagram, Your Favourite Film Was Awful, and Facebook, Your Favourite Film Was Awful. And we're on all podcasting platforms as well if you don't want to see our ugly mutts. But but yeah, other than that, Luke.
But yeah, that's the end. First episode of season 2, assuming that this episode comes out first.
Amazing. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's good to be back.
Good to be back. Right. Ta-ta.
Bye-bye. And thank you for listening.
What's your favorite film?
God, that's awful.
Favorite?
Awful.
Awful.
Your favorite
film.
Awful.